When I see high-level performance, I see leaders living their best life, being a great soul, making a big difference, and learning to receive. I'm JD, the VIP Coach, and you're listening to the VIP Coach podcast, liberating leaders, saving geniuses, and growing companies. Bringing leaders to these aspects is what I do, because they need creative freedom to make a big jump in their career. They need to help the world see the opportunity of them, and they rely on their most important gifts and talents to leverage their effectiveness. This is the pathway to high-level performance, and it's about lifestyle, freedom, and growth. Welcome. So, Emanuel, let's talk about the book and what you've put together, what you have been creating. This is fascinating. And I'd like to get into what really is the drive and the why behind Wenaha. Can you go into it?
Yeah, I've always been an outdoors person, and it was an important part of my growing up with my family. And the grandkids are remote. You know, they're a car trip away, and so in thinking about how I could continue to influence from a distance at a young and impressionable age, you know, they're still in single digits, and Henry's 4 right now, and so wanting to be there on a consistent basis with messaging that is valuable and triggering and providing leadership and fun for him. That's the motivation, is the structural coupling, right, as Fernando Flores calls it, and I wanted to provide those stories for him. And the first book came about in a very, very organic way, where I was sitting next to the Wenaha River in northeast Oregon, looked up at this amazing wall that was probably 250 feet tall, and it had a mosaic quality to it that, the colored gold is very deep in this rock formation, and it just triggered for me the Gustav Klimt mosaic piece called The Kiss. And so then, you know, in this kind of listening to the river, sitting in the chair, thinking and feeling these things, I see this hawk circling around, doing the hawk circles, and then it all kind of came together. The Robert Fritz of the Twilit Tharp, and the creativity and the moment, and my past conversations with Susan about influencing the grandkids, and I'm like, oh, Wenaha Henry, you know, it just bang, it just hit me, the red-tailed hawk. And so from there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to follow the process, like JD and I have been talking about, and so worked through building a process of meditation, and then writing these stories, and then getting a version that was clean enough that then I could hire an illustrator, and just for Henry. And it was just a gift that I gave to Henry, and he loved it, of course, because it's about him, and it's about animals, and it's about the river, and so that in itself is unbelievably rewarding.
Yeah. There's so much there. I want to go into specifically the pulse, the moment of insight, or really foresight, when things started to sort of synthesize. Like you said, you had all of these dimensions that were sort of looking upon something trying to nuclearize or crystallize. And I think we encounter that in leadership when we sense a vision in the far off, or we sense something coming in towards us, and it's an unfurling or an unfolding. You had a moment in nature. You were outward bound. You're there, you're in this place to be, and you're opening yourself to what is going on in many different levels of listening. And then the kiss, the mosaic, and this piece was also there. I had this sense, Emmanuel, as you were talking, as if everything was ready to begin. There was a formation that was holding almost a pregnant space, like a sacred project that you see and then you sense into it. And I want to explore that because it's so fascinating how you sort of caught that emerging moment, and how can you describe that for you in terms of a creative act, a creative pulse or process? What is that? How do you describe lining that up? It, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you line it up as a process? And I think it is this purposeful time alone, away from the screens and the phone. That's the start for me.
Mm.
Um, this particular spot is an hour and a half by gravel, so it literally is the middle of nowhere. That's where it starts. Is getting into nature time and then having nothing to do. Um, and so that emptiness, like the proverb is, right? The empty teacup has got room for the tea. Um,
Mm.
and so that coupled with um, meditation um, and then this, I guess, bigger purpose, which was I wanted to connect with Henry how I can, and would that was my goal, because I can't be
Mm.
there every night to read him stories or put him to bed or whatever those things are in his daily ritual. So I
Mm.
put those three pieces together:
Mm.
space, meditation, and an outcome,
Mm.
and then made room to have the answer come, and then to hear
Yes,
it,
making
and
yeah.
then take action.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's right. And we talk about in creating there's the desire, which is that love. You can hear the thought of loving him, and that that orientation of creating a connection how you can to him has motivated the creative act, and then the staging for it, right? The current reality, the positioning for the unfolding, the approach. I love how you describe the yes first and then the how, so that we're not trying to figure out the whole thing here and getting ahead. Rather, we're unfolding it as we're going. We're making room for differences and so forth. Can you describe, as you wrote it, how you came into some of the key insights? What have been some of the most significant or enjoyable insights for you that you're offering in the book to him? And how did you get those?
Oh yeah, that's good. I think I look to uh, developing as many layered stories as possible. So I study with a man named Tom Brown, who's part of the Lipan Apache tradition, and he calls it coyote teaching.
Mm.
So, uh, so inside of every story is as many layers as I can build in with narrative and visuals, so that there's a deep richness to it that um, is complicated, but there's something for everybody, and you can read it many times like a myth and still get value from it. So the coyote teaching, then this idea of archetype psychology, the four different archetypes of male energy, and then the mythology, and so to interweave all these elements has been a fun puzzle to then distill into a palatable story for a 4 or 5 year old.
Yes. Yes. How this is great. So it's that it's that process of enriching the story by developing the layers and going into as many layers as you can. And so you're gathering different places, different teachings. I love the variety in that, Emmanuel, that you draw from so many different components that are brought forth, and then the writing comes up. Was the writing it? Sometimes I hear a writer creator is writing on schedule. They'll say, "Well, I got a day where I write. I got a time when I commit to my writing." Is the process for you an organic one? Is it more of a I hear it and then I write it and then I take inspiration into the creative writing, or is it more of a fixed and scheduled discipline? How do you describe your process?
Yeah. So the process for me is an early morning process. So uh, I get up and go through my morning meditations, and then immediately in a dark room, um, develop the story. And this particular topic I wrote on last summer during the forest fires in the Central California, and so because Henry was worried about the fires, and so this is it's called Seeds to a Tree, and it's about a fire process and then taking action after the fire, and so that my goal was again to write a story about forest fire, and I created the vessel through meditation to then go in and write this myth that I wrote.
Mm, mm. Now, has Henry interacted with you on the book content? Have you how could I picture his interaction with you on this? Is that process begun?
It hasn't. It's been through intermediaries. So Susan has has read them to him, and she's given me the feedback about what he likes and what's where the gaps are, and
Mm.
anticipate this. I'll see him in a few weeks and get to read this new book to him then.
Okay. Okay. I think the listeners, I want to make sure that those that are listening to this realize the man you're hearing has a career in marketing, and that marketing is all about listening to an audience and
Hmm.
looking at what's relevant. And what fascinates me about you, Emmanuel, is that your audience is a 4-year-old here. And here you are in the in the corporate world, in the marketing world, uh, with a 4-year-old consumer, and 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 you have a intermediary that is giving and receiving feedback, so that you can see how your work is coming toward him. It's like your current reality is the 4-year-old says, and does it work? Does it not? And I find that fascinating that you open your marketing apertures to the feedback of this.
Yeah.
It's one thing that fascinated me when we started in on the vision and created together through coaching. What has teased out here, what's become real, is the um, the escorting this idea of ushering this idea of it's for Henry, and let's not get ahead of ourselves thinking that we're going to change the world, or that this has to be this New York Times bestseller, and let's go after it and put it in the number one selling spot and imagine it, and it's going to be the next chicken soup for the soul, so to speak. This is the you know uh, the work that needs to be done because it's something you love and it's something you've done for the sake of it, and you've always been clear to the pulse of this idea. And I think there's so much potential in that you've held steady to this one thing that has kept yourself and your head down on the writing that you do. Just any thoughts on that? What you make of that?
Yeah, well, that's a nice, broad, deep topic. It reminds me that Mahatma Gandhi talked about that there will the best path to peace is for a man to love one woman, and with that love, then that will change the world. And
Mm.
in this respect, I'm loving this one young boy, showing him the best that I know about reality's operations and the nature of the world. And at the same time, I'm also influencing the reader, his parents, and if those are the only people that would change from this book, then that is success for me.
So are you saying that the parents are changed by it in the sense that they have an opportunity to share the wisdom with their children? Is that part of what gets you moving in this?
Yeah, and that in the multi-dimension archetypal coyote teaching, uh, there's also triggers in there for the reader, and it opens um, and triggers things in their psyche as well.
Can you connect a little bit, Emanuel, with what is kind of you visioning what's going on in the world and bring us into the context of that? Because I hear a macro. Maybe it's just me, but I'm hearing kind of that macro soundtrack of something in the background of what parents are facing, or maybe what's going on in the world now, and what's connecting with you, and this very intimate and tender relationship with your grandson. How do I connect those two? What's the bridge?
Well, I think in this the world we're living in is more and more like the Matrix, right? We're just living in these pods connected by smartphones to life, and um, the the goal or the place where I've gotten the most connection with God is through nature and actually doing things, and I think the more that we can get kids and families engaged in activities, hiking and fishing and camping and spending time off the screens, then that leads people to go inward and figure out the things that we need to figure out as human beings.
Wow. Yes, that shift of attending from the media and getting caught in all of that to redirecting one's attention inward uh, into their own nature. And maybe I've often heard it said that when we go out in nature, we experience our own nature. There's something that turns us inside out. I've often said to myself, I love going to the ocean. And so I think of the ocean as my church. And there's a reset
Yeah.
that happens that draws something that surfaces when we're encountering an animal creature, or an experience in the forest, or how the mountain explains itself. And so what you're after is igniting that fire, the as we say, the fire keeping of the nature instant, and encouraging, escorting, ushering the nature experience. That's a big part of how you live, isn't it? And how you integrate that into all the things that you do. Yes?
Yeah, and to help facilitate the questions of why am I here and what am I here to do, and how do I be more than just a consuming unit?
Yeah.
What do I contribute, and what's my special contribution? My
Yeah. What's my
remarkable
place to
contribution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's my place to take in the ecosystem? Because, it's amazing. So many folks out there are lost, and they're not sure where they're going, and they don't know how they can be useful, and how to connect with the possibilities of themselves, and to open up to that, and how to connect with a larger purpose, or connect with a larger sense of what they need to do. That's a beautiful, beautiful thought. Well, Emanuel, I think we're coming to the edge here of the conversation. Just any final thoughts for the readers or listeners?
I appreciate the work that we've done together to create a structure that I could make all these connections and put this series of books together for Henry and for the world.
That's beautiful. Yeah, yeah. It makes me reinforce the fact that the relationships are where the properties of things come from. We don't do it by ourselves only. We do it through the collaborations and through great work comes from being together. It comes from social construction. You know, music isn't made by one person. It's made by several that are working together. Well, this is a great thing, and I'm so proud of what you've done and what we're working on and continue to refine. It just works, Emmanuel, and we have a good process for bringing creations to the world, and that you have a wisdom in you that I feel like I'm unfolding all the time, that I get to unblock all the time, and that's so much fun to be considering the meaning that has for me in my own eulogy values. So I too also have such great gratitude for the work we do together. Okay. Well, this is great. Thank you so much for being here. And if you'd like to get a hold of Emmanuel, please just respond to this blog, and I can give you a way forward to get a hold of his work and enjoy the fruits of what he's really born to do. You've been listening to the VIP Coach Podcast, Freedom, Lifestyle, and Growth. Are you ready for high-level performance? Find us online at highlevelperformance.com and get yourself coached, raise your A game, and experience the difference. Pull it all together. Get your team coached to high-level performance and become part of the community today and position your company for greatness. It's about freedom, lifestyle, and growth. The VIP Coach.